My mother-in-law announced to the whole family that I was trash from the streets he brought home out of pity, and ordered me to sit on a plastic chair in the corner during Christmas dinner while she placed his respectable ex-girlfriend right beside my husband, and had them hold hands and kiss on the cheek for the family picture. What would you do, honestly, if your mother-in-law not only humiliated you at Christmas dinner by throwing red wine in your face, but then leaned in and told you, "Servants don't get to have opinions"? And what if that was just the beginning of her calculated, years-long plan to destroy your marriage and replace you with your husband's ex-girlfriend? I'm still shaking from everything that's happened, and I just have to tell someone. My name's Mina, and I married Nathan 3 years ago. His family. Oh, they're old Virginia money. Think country clubs, debutante balls, knowing your genealogy back to the Revolutionary War. Me? I grew up in a regular neighborhood in Norfolk, with a single mom who worked 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. Nathan and I met at VCU. He swore up and down his family would love me. They did not. Love me, that is. His mother, Helen, made it clear from day one that I was nothing but trash who had somehow trapped her precious son. I heard her tell Nathan's sister, Savannah, that I probably poked holes in condoms to get pregnant. Can you believe the audacity? And for the record, we don't even have kids yet. Then, 2 years ago I got pregnant, and I miscarried at 8 weeks. It was devastating. But Helen? She told people at her garden club that I probably made the whole thing up for attention. Nathan heard about it from his cousin and confronted her. And she just smiled a cold, knowing smile and said, "Well, if there had been a real pregnancy, surely there would have been a real baby." My blood ran cold when I heard that. But Christmas dinner. That's when everything truly exploded. Helen hosts this massive affair every year at their colonial estate in the West End, circular driveway and all. She'd been texting Nathan for weeks, demanding we come early to help set up. What that really meant was she wanted me to help the caterers in the kitchen while everyone else sipped champagne. Fine. Whatever. I can handle being treated like staff. What I couldn't handle was walking in and seeing Nathan's ex-girlfriend, Oilia, sitting right there in the living room. Oilia is everything Helen ever wanted for Nathan. Her family owns half the vineyards in Charlottesville. She went to Sweetbriar. She knows which fork to use for oysters. They dated for 2 years before college, and get this, Helen still has their prom photo on her mantle. I'm not kidding. Their prom photo. Nathan's asked her to take it down at least 50 times. I walked in, and Oilia gave me this saccharine smile and said, "Oh, Mina, Helen didn't tell me you'd be here." Total BS, of course. Helen had obviously invited her specifically to mess with me. Nathan looked as confused as I was, and he asked his mom what was going on. Helen just breezed past, saying, "Oilia is family and always will be." The dinner setup was where things escalated. Helen had placed cards at this long, formal dining table, and I watched her put Oilia's card right next to Nathan's seat. My card? Way down at the far end, practically by the kitchen door. I tried to stay calm. "Hey, Helen," I said. "I think there's been a mistake with the seating." She turned, her smile razor-thin, and said, "No mistake, dear. I seated everyone exactly where they belong." Nathan, bless his heart, grabbed the cards and started switching them around. And Helen, she lost it. She started yelling about how I've ruined every family event with my presence. How I have no class, no breeding. How she's tried so hard to teach me proper etiquette, but I'm simply incapable of learning. She said I dress like I shop at a gas station and talk like I never finished high school. Nathan was yelling back. His dad Charles was trying to calm everyone, but Helen just kept going. She said Nathan was the most promising of all her children until he met me. She claimed I got my hooks in him and dragged him down to my level. The family has standards, she said, and I don't meet a single one. Then she looked straight at me, her eyes cutting, and said, "When I see you near the kitchen, it's because that's where you're comfortable, isn't it? With the help." I was trying so hard not to cry, because I knew that's exactly what she wanted. Nathan, furious, said we were leaving. But Helen hit us with the ultimate threat. If we left, we'd be uninvited from all future family events. Not just asked to skip them. Banned. Nathan's trust fund is controlled by his parents until he's 35. And Helen reminded him of that right there in front of everyone. Said if we left, she'd make sure Charles cut off his access. So we stayed. I sat in my assigned seat at the end of the table near the kitchen. But it gets worse. Helen hadn't even put a regular chair there for me. She brought up one of those flimsy plastic patio chairs from the garage, and that's what I sat on. While everyone else had plush, upholstered dining chairs, I was perched on plastic. Savannah noticed. She looked horrified, but she didn't say anything. Nathan's brother Archie just smirked like it was hilarious. Dinner was 2 hours of pure hell. Oilia kept touching Nathan's arm, laughing at everything he said. Helen kept directing all conversation through Oilia, asking her about her new job at some art gallery in D.C., complimenting her dress, reminiscing about old times when she and Nathan were together. Every time I tried to join the conversation, Helen would talk over me or just ignore me completely. The wine throwing happened during dessert. Helen was telling some story about a charity gala and mentioned it was black tie formal. Then she looked directly at me and said, "Of course Mina wouldn't know what that means, since I don't think she owns anything appropriate for real society events." I'd had enough. I snapped. "Actually, Helen," I said, my voice trembling but firm, "I know exactly what black tie means, and I've been to plenty of formal events." She laughed. She actually laughed in my face, a brittle, dismissive sound. "Oh, sweetie," she purred. "The Olive Garden doesn't count as formal dining." Some people at the table chuckled and I felt my face flush hot. I told her I wasn't talking about the Olive Garden. I was talking about actual formal events. "Name one," she challenged. So I brought up Nathan's law school graduation dinner, which had been at this really fancy downtown restaurant. Helen immediately dismissed it. "That wasn't a real formal event," she said. "That was just Nathan being kind enough to include you in his achievement." I snapped. Truly snapped. "Maybe," I said, my voice rising, "if she stopped treating me like garbage for 5 seconds, she'd realize I'm not going anywhere, and she needs to accept that I'm Nathan's wife." I was so sick of her talking about me like I was dirt she scraped off her shoe. I told her she'd been trying to humiliate me since the day we met, and it needed to stop. Helen stood up. Slowly, deliberately. She picked up her wine glass, walked down to my end of the table, and without a word dumped the entire thing on my head. Red wine. All over my white sweater, my hair, my face. It dripped down my chin. Then she leaned down, her face inches from mine, and whispered, "Servants don't have opinions, dear. You're here because Nathan feels sorry for you. You're street garbage he picked up out of pity. And we're all just waiting for him to take out the trash." I just sat there, wine dripping off my chin. Helen walked back to her seat like nothing happened. Nathan jumped up, screaming at his mother, saying she'd crossed every possible line. But Helen, calm as you please, just said, "If she was going to be disrespectful in my home, then she deserves to be put in her place." I got up and went to the bathroom to clean up, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the towel. When I came back, they were taking family photos in the living room. It's a tradition every Christmas. The whole family arranged on couches and chairs. The photographer was already set up, and Helen was positioning everyone very specifically, with Oilia right next to Nathan on the couch. I started to sit on Nathan's other side, and Helen cut me off. "No, Mina," she said dismissively. "You can stand in the back. The family photo is for actual family members." Oilia, the viper, even tried to protest, saying she didn't need to be in the photo. But Helen insisted. "Oilia will always be part of our family," she declared, regardless of Nathan's poor choices. Then the ultimate insult. Helen made Nathan and Oilia hold hands for one of the photos. Hold hands. Nathan refused at first, but Helen said if he wanted to remain in the family and keep his trust fund, he'd do as she asked. She even made them do this gross cheek kiss pose like they were still together. I was standing in the back corner, next to Archie's wife, who just looked profoundly embarrassed for me. After the photos, Nathan said we were leaving. This time we actually did. Helen called after us, saying we weren't welcome at New Year's Eve or any spring events. "You've managed to ruin Christmas," she yelled. "Just like you ruin everything." We got in the car, and Nathan was apologizing over and over, saying he'd talked to his dad about cutting off his mother's control. But I barely heard him. I was just trying not to have a full-blown breakdown. Here's what I didn't mention earlier because it makes everything worse. This has been going on for years. Helen tells everyone I baby-trapped Nathan, even though we don't have kids. She told Nathan's own grandmother before she died that I wasn't really in love with Nathan, just his money. She's conveniently forgotten to invite me to multiple family events, then acted surprised when I didn't show up. Last summer, she planned a family vacation to their beach house and specifically told Nathan to leave me home. Said wives weren't invited, just immediate family. When Nathan brought me anyway, she gave us the worst room, the one with the broken AC in July. She throws my background in my face constantly. Makes comments about my mom working retail. Asked me once if I even knew what a 401k was. Corrects my grammar in front of people. She rewrote our wedding vows without asking because she said mine weren't eloquent enough for the family church. She's told multiple people that my daughter, if I ever have one, won't look like Nathan, so he should get a DNA test. I'm not even pregnant. At my birthday party last month, which Nathan threw at a restaurant with our friends, Helen showed up uninvited. She brought a gift. A book about etiquette and manners. She said loudly in front of everyone that she thought it might help me finally learn how to conduct myself properly. And when I didn't thank her enthusiastically enough, she called me useless. After Christmas, Nathan kept trying to convince me his mom would calm down, but she kept texting him about how I disrespected her in her own home, and she wouldn't tolerate it. She sent him a long message about how Oilia would have been the perfect daughter-in-law, and it wasn't too late for him to fix his mistake. She told him I was pulling him away from his real family. The next morning, Helen sent Nathan a formal, written list of expectations for me if I wanted to attend future family events. Actual bullet points, mind you, things like appropriate formal attire at all times, no speaking unless directly addressed, no contradicting family elders, acknowledgement of my lower social standing. She CC'd Charles on it like it was a work memo. Nathan was so angry he called her immediately, and they had this massive fight where she said if he just married Oilia, none of this would be happening. Then, 3 days after Christmas, Oilia posted a photo on Instagram from the dinner. It was one of the post photos where she and Nathan were holding hands. Her caption was something like, "Always grateful for this family and their love." Helen commented with heart emojis. About 15 of their family friends liked it. I wasn't tagged, and I'm not even visible in the photo because of how Helen positioned everyone. People were commenting, asking if they were back together. Helen's friends from the garden club were messaging her congratulations. Nathan's aunt called to say how happy she was that he'd come to his senses. That's when it hit me. Helen's plan wasn't just to humiliate me. She was actively trying to break us up and push Nathan back toward Oilia. The Christmas dinner? That was theater. Staged specifically to show Nathan what his life could be like with someone Helen approved of. And the scary part? Nathan's so used to his mother's manipulation that he doesn't see how calculated it all is. Yesterday, Nathan told me his parents want to have a meeting with both of us to discuss my behavior at Christmas dinner. My behavior? Like I'm the one who threw wine and humiliated someone. Nathan says we should go, maybe we can resolve this. But I don't want to sit through another session of Helen explaining why I'm not good enough for her son. Last night, Nathan and I had a huge fight about the meeting. He said I need to just apologize to his mother to keep the peace. I lost it. Apologize for what? I demanded. For existing? For not being born into the right family? For defending myself when she called me street garbage? He backtracked, said he didn't mean I should actually apologize. Just let her feel like she won so we could move past this. I told him there is no moving past this. His mother threw wine in my face in front of 30 people. She made him pose for romantic photos with his ex-girlfriend while I stood in the corner like furniture. She put me on a plastic chair like I wasn't worth a real seat at the table. And his solution is for me to bow down and take it so his trust fund stays intact? Nathan got all upset. He said the trust fund isn't just about money. It's about maintaining family relationships. He said his mom has always been difficult, but cutting her off completely would destroy the whole family dynamic. I asked him, what family dynamic? The one where everyone pretends I don't exist? Or the one where they openly mock me for not being rich enough? He didn't have an answer. Just kept saying the meeting could be a chance to set boundaries and make things better. But I know exactly what's going to happen. Helen is going to list all the ways I've failed, demand that I fall in line, and threaten to cut Nathan off financially if I don't comply. And Nathan is going to sit there, torn between his wife and his trust fund, while his mother backs us both into a corner. I'm writing this the night before we're supposed to go. Nathan's asleep and I'm sitting here wondering if I should even show up. Part of me wants to text Helen right now and tell her exactly what I think of her and her family. But the other part of me knows that's exactly what she wants. For me to prove I'm as low class as she thinks I am. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I can sit across from that woman without absolutely exploding. And I definitely don't know if my marriage can survive this, because Nathan's still trying to fix something his mother deliberately broke. Update. Okay, so I posted yesterday about my MIL throwing wine in my face at Christmas dinner. And a lot of you said I needed to stand up for myself at this meeting with Nathan's parents. Some of you were like, just don't go. But here's the thing. Nathan was absolutely convinced this could fix everything if I just gave it a chance. So, against every instinct I had, I went. We got to their house around 2 in the afternoon. Same massive colonial in the West End. Same circular driveway. Same feeling like I was walking into enemy territory. Charles, Nathan's dad, opened the door. He didn't even look at me. Just nodded curtly at Nathan and led us to the living room. Helen was sitting in this high-back chair, like it was a throne. She had tea set up on the coffee table, actual china, with little sandwiches arranged on a tiered stand. I swear she'd staged it specifically to remind me I didn't belong in her world. Nathan and I sat on the couch across from her, and Charles took the chair right next to Helen, a united front. Before anyone could say anything, I heard footsteps on the stairs, and Oilia walked into the room. My heart sank. I looked at Nathan and his face went white. What is she doing here? He demanded. Helen smiled. Oilia is part of this family, she purred, and has every right to be present for family discussions. Oilia sat down in the chair on Helen's other side, and gave me this sympathetic look that made me want to throw something. I'm not doing this with her here, I said, my voice tight. Helen just shrugged. Then you're welcome to leave, dear. But Nathan will be staying because we have important matters to discuss about his future. Nathan immediately said, if Mina leaves, I leave. And Helen's smile didn't falter. That would be very foolish, son, considering what's at stake. Charles finally spoke up, saying they'd asked us here to address the situation from Christmas and find a path forward. Helen interrupted him, sharp and cold. No, Charles. We asked them here to discuss Mina's unacceptable behavior and what consequences there need to be. She looked directly at me. You embarrassed the family in front of 30 guests by raising your voice and causing a scene. I could not believe this woman. Helen, I said, my voice rising, you threw wine in my face. You called me street garbage. You made me sit on a plastic chair while your son held hands with his ex-girlfriend. Helen waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. I reacted to your disrespect. You spoke to me in a tone that no one uses in my home. The seating arrangements were perfectly reasonable, and the photographs were simply maintaining family traditions. Oilia, the ultimate opportunist, jumped in then. She said she understood this must be difficult for me. But Helen had explained that including her in family events was important for Nathan's well-being. She went on about how she and Nathan had history and connections that couldn't just be erased because he'd made an impulsive marriage. Impulsive? We'd been together for 5 years at that point. Nathan finally found his voice and told Oilia she needed to stay out of this. But Helen was quick. Oilia has valuable perspective on what Nathan needs in a partner, she declared. Oilia understood the family's expectations and standards in a way you clearly never will, Mina. Then she turned to Nathan, her tone dripping with false concern. You've been struggling ever since you married her, Nathan. You've been pulled away from family. Your career hasn't progressed the way it should have. You're constantly stressed about money. Nathan snapped back. That's not because of Mina. That's because you cut off my trust fund access and make everything conditional. Helen just smiled. I've maintained his access just fine, dear, but his poor decisions have consequences. If he'd married appropriately, he'd have full access to everything by now. But instead, he's stuck trying to support a lifestyle his wife can't contribute to properly. I was shaking. Excuse me, I cut in. I work full-time and contribute equally to our household. Helen laughed, a truly vile sound. Darling, let's not pretend your income is significant. In our world, wives were expected to bring social connections and family standing, not just a paycheck from a strip mall. Charles, to his credit, tried to interject. Helen, maybe we should focus on solutions rather than criticisms. She shot him a look, and he went quiet immediately. Then she laid out what she called the path forward. Nathan could maintain his position in the family and his trust fund access if he agreed to certain conditions. First, I would attend family events only when specifically required, and I would observe proper protocols, including not speaking unless addressed directly by senior family members. Second, Nathan would attend major family events solo, so he could properly network and maintain family relationships without distraction. Third, living arrangements would be reevaluated, because our current apartment wasn't appropriate for someone of Nathan's standing. Absolutely not, I said, standing up. We're not agreeing to any of that. Helen just looked at me unfazed. You weren't being asked to agree, Mina. You're being told what the requirements are. Nathan can choose his marriage or his family, but he can't have both unless you learn your place. Then she turned to Nathan, her voice soft but menacing. You're 29 years old, Nathan. You should be practicing law. How exactly do you plan to provide the life you promised her without family support? Nathan was quiet. I could see him doing the math in his head. We just talked about his loan payment that morning, how we had no idea how to cover it. Helen saw his hesitation and pressed harder. She said the family had connections that could get him into a good firm, help with housing, ensure his future children attended the right schools. All of that, she warned, went away if he insisted on prioritizing someone who would only drag him down. Oilia, of course, added her 2 cents. She said she'd hate to see Nathan throw away his potential. Said when they were together he'd been so driven and focused, but lately he seemed tired and stressed all the time. Sometimes love isn't enough, she simpered. If the partnership isn't lifting both people up. I wanted to punch her right in her perfect teeth. Nathan, I said, grabbing his arm, we're leaving. We're not listening to this anymore. He didn't move. Helen, seeing her advantage, jumped in. See, Nathan? This is exactly the problem. She can't handle adult conversations about reality. She wants you to throw away your entire future for what? Some romantic notion of true love. She looked at me, her gaze piercing. You know he's going to resent you eventually, Mina. When the money runs out and the bills pile up, and he realizes what he gave up for you, you'll be the anchor around his neck. I stood up. I'm done, I declared, my voice trembling with rage. I'm not sitting here while you plot how to destroy my marriage with your son sitting right here. Nathan finally moved. He stood up next to me. Helen's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. If you walk out that door, Nathan, your trust fund access ends immediately. Not reduced, not conditional, ended. You'll be responsible for your own student loans, your own housing, everything. And don't think you can come back in a few months when reality hits. This is a one-time offer. Nathan looked at me and I could see him breaking. Maybe we should hear them out, he stammered. Maybe there's a compromise. My heart shattered. The compromise is you choosing between your wife and your mother's money. There's no middle ground here. He tried to argue. We need to be practical about this. We can't just ignore our financial situation. Helen smiled. She actually smiled. She knew she was winning. Nathan is being mature about this, she said, practically preening. We could start small. Maybe Mina could skip the New Year's Eve party, and Nathan could come solo. Then we'd reevaluate from there. Nathan was nodding. I felt sick. If you go to that party without me, I said, my voice barely a whisper, we're done. Helen turned to Charles. See? See how she makes ultimatums and tries to control him? This is exactly what I've been saying. She isolates him from family and makes demands. Nathan looked at me, pleading. Mina, don't do this. Don't make me choose. You're the one making a choice right now, I shot back. By even considering this. Just then Savannah walked in. She must have been listening from somewhere, because she came in looking absolutely furious. Mom, what are you doing? She demanded. Helen, surprised, said, This doesn't concern you, Savannah. It does concern me, Savannah retorted. Because I've watched you do this for years, and it's gotten completely out of control. You threw wine on her at Christmas. You made her sit on a plastic chair. You're literally trying to buy Nathan away from his wife right now. Helen's face went cold. Savannah, if you can't contribute productively to this conversation, you need to leave. I'm not leaving. Savannah fired back. Someone needs to point out how messed up this is. Helen stood up, her voice icy. You want to talk about messed up? Let's talk about your recent credit card statements that Charles and I have been covering. Let's talk about your job at that boutique that barely pays minimum wage. You want to lecture me about family dynamics when you're living off family money. Savannah's face went red, but she stood her ground. That's different, she insisted. Helen scoffed. It's not different at all. The family supports members who uphold family values and excludes those who don't. If you want to continue receiving support, you'll remember where your loyalty needs to be. Savannah looked at Nathan, her eyes begging. Are you really going to let them do this? Are you going to choose money over Mina? Nathan didn't answer. He just stood there looking completely torn. And in that moment I realized it. He was actually considering it. He was considering leaving me at home while he went to family events with Oilia there. He was considering Helen's conditions, because the money mattered that much. I grabbed my coat. Without another word I walked out. Nathan called after me but I kept going. I got in my car and drove back to our apartment alone. About an hour later Nathan came home. He tried to explain that he just needed time to think about options, that we needed to be smart about this. There's nothing to think about, I told him, my voice flat. Your mother wants you to choose, and you're considering choosing her. He protested. That's not fair. I'm trying to find a solution that doesn't destroy our financial future. I stared at him. Our financial future means nothing if you're willing to let your mother dictate our marriage. He got frustrated. Said I was being unrealistic about money, that we couldn't just survive on pride and principles. He reminded me his student loan payment was due in 2 weeks, and we had $400 in our checking account. We fought for 3 hours. He kept saying we needed to be practical, and I kept saying his mother was trying to break us up and he was letting her. Finally, he said he was going to the New Year's Eve party whether I came or not, because he needed to maintain some family relationships. I asked if Oilia would be there. He said probably, but that wasn't the point. It's exactly the point. I yelled. Your mother is using her to replace me, and you're too worried about money to see it. That was 4 days ago. He's barely spoken to me since. He sleeps on the couch and leaves for work early. Yesterday I saw he'd texted Savannah, asking if she thought he was being unreasonable. And Savannah had replied that she understood his position, even though she disagreed with it. So apparently, even his sister, who supposedly supported me, thinks he should consider Helen's conditions. Then this morning, I was at the grocery store and ran into Helen's friend from the club. She smiled at me, a sickeningly sweet smile, and said she'd heard Nathan was coming to New Year's Eve after all, and wasn't that wonderful? Said Helen had mentioned that Nathan and I were working through some differences, and she hoped we could resolve them maturely. I just stared at her. Helen was already spreading the narrative that I was the problem, holding Nathan back. I got home and Nathan was packing a bag. Said he was going to stay at Archie's place for a few days to get some space and clear his head. I looked at him, my voice barely a whisper. Is this it? Are you choosing them? He said he wasn't choosing anyone. He was trying to figure out how to make everything work. It doesn't work, I told him, a cold certainty settling in my chest. You can't have both. Your mother made that very clear. He left anyway. So now I'm sitting here alone, wondering if my marriage just ended because I wouldn't let my mother-in-law treat me like trash in exchange for money. Nathan's been texting me saying he just needs time to think. But I know what's happening. Helen's in his ear talking about our financial situation. And Oilia is probably being sympathetic and available. And I'm supposed to just sit here and wait while he decides if I'm worth giving up his trust fund for. The New Year's Eve party is tomorrow night. Nathan hasn't told me if he's definitely going, but I'm assuming he is since he packed nice clothes. Which means he'll be there with Oilia, while Helen parades them around. And I'll be sitting at home like the wife who wasn't good enough to bring. I don't know what to do. Do I wait and see if he comes to his senses? Do I pack my stuff and leave before he makes his choice obvious? Everyone keeps telling me to be patient, but how patient am I supposed to be while his family actively works to destroy our marriage, and he stands there considering their offers? This is so much worse than I thought it would be. Last update. Okay, so after my last post, where Nathan was at Archie's planning to go to the New Year's Eve party, a bunch of you told me to stop waiting around and start making my own decisions. You were right. New Year's Eve morning, I decided I was done. I got dressed, got in my car, and drove straight to Helen's house. I walked right past her into the party while she was greeting guests. She couldn't make a scene with 30 people watching, so she just positioned Oilia next to Nathan all night and made sure everyone saw me as the crasher. At dinner, there was no place card for me. I sat at the main table anyway. Helen demanded I move to the overflow table. I refused. She told Charles to remove me, then Archie. Nathan finally told everyone to stop. That's when Oilia spoke up, ever so sweetly, and explained that Helen had told her Nathan's marriage was struggling, and he'd expressed doubts about whether he'd made the right choice. Helen, she said, thought reminding Nathan of other options might help him reconsider. I looked at Nathan. My voice was dangerously quiet. Did you tell your mother you had doubts about marrying me? His face gave him away. He admitted it. It was one conversation, he mumbled, when we were fighting about money a few months back after that huge fight about his student loans. So, while I was racking my brain trying to figure out how we could manage financially, he was telling his mother he should have married someone richer. Helen, predictably, interrupted, insisting Nathan had come to her multiple times, expressing concern about maintaining his lifestyle with someone from my background. She'd just been facilitating a graceful way for him to correct his mistake. I grabbed my coat. "Savannah," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Let's go." She nodded, not even looking at Helen, and we left. We loaded my stuff that night, and I drove to my mom's house in Norfolk. That was a week ago. I thought that was the end. Nathan's been texting constantly, apologizing. Helen's been texting him, demanding he fix things. I ignored all of it. But yesterday afternoon, I was in my mom's kitchen when there was a knock at the door. My mom answered, and then I heard Helen's voice. Helen was standing on my mom's front porch. She'd driven 90 minutes to get there. My mom asked what she wanted. Helen, ignoring my mom completely, announced she needed to speak with me about the situation with Nathan. My mom tried to close the door, but Helen put her hand on it, insisting this concerned her son's future, and she wasn't leaving until we had an adult conversation. I came to the door, my temper flaring. "What the hell are you doing at my mom's house?" I demanded. She looked past me into our home like she was inspecting it. Then she started talking about how we needed to discuss separation terms, since I filed paperwork without consulting Nathan properly. My mom, bless her heart, ordered her to leave our property. Helen ignored her completely and kept talking about how I was being unreasonable and vindictive. The family, she said, had consulted with their attorney and had concerns about how I was handling things. What concerns? I asked, my voice flat. Helen pulled out an actual printed list of items she claimed I'd taken from the apartment that belonged to Nathan or were purchased with family money. The coffee maker. Throw pillows. A lamp. My mom lost it. "Get off our porch with your ridiculous list and stop harassing my daughter," she yelled. Helen looked at my mom like she'd just noticed her, and warned that if I insisted on being difficult, they'd pursue legal action for theft of property. I laughed. Right in her face. She'd driven all the way here to threaten me over a coffee maker? Helen snapped that it wasn't about the coffee maker. It was about me understanding that actions have consequences. My mom stepped between us and told Helen she had 10 seconds to leave before she called the police. Helen, completely unfazed, shot back. "Go ahead and call them. I'd be happy to explain to law enforcement that she'd stolen property and abandoned her legal residence." My mom pointed out I didn't abandon anything. I left an emotionally abusive situation. Helen's face went cold. She warned that abusive was a strong word, and I should be careful about making accusations that could be considered slander. Then she looked at my mom, a sneer on her face, and remarked she could see where I learned my dramatic tendencies and lack of respect for social boundaries. My mom told Helen in no uncertain terms to get the hell off her property. Helen glanced around at our modest neighborhood and observed that this house was exactly what she'd expected, that it explained so much about why I'd never understood basic standards of behavior. She noted she'd wondered what kind of environment produced someone so grasping and inappropriate. I was done. "You can insult me all you want," I said, my voice shaking with barely suppressed rage. "But you are not going to stand on my mom's porch insulting my family and our home." Helen claimed she wasn't insulting anything, simply observing that some people were raised with certain values, and others weren't. My mom, who is usually the calmest person I know, walked right up to Helen, got in her face and hissed, "Listen, you miserable witch. My daughter has more class and character in her little finger than your entire family combined. You've spent 4 years trying to break her down because you're a controlling nightmare who can't stand that your son chose someone you can't manipulate. Now get off my property before I make you leave." Helen stepped back, genuinely shocked, and declared this explained everything. That this level of hostility was clearly what I'd been taught growing up. My mom responded that what she was taught was to stand up to bullies, and Helen was the biggest bully she'd ever met. That's when Nathan's car pulled into the driveway. He got out looking utterly stressed and asked what was going on. Helen immediately complained that I was being completely unreasonable and refusing to have a rational discussion. Nathan asked why I wouldn't just talk to his mother. I demanded to know why his mother was at my mother's house harassing us. Helen insisted she wasn't harassing anyone. Nathan suggested we all go inside and talk calmly. My mom refused absolutely. Helen was not welcome in her home. Nathan tried saying, "We all needed to be mature about this." My mom shot back, "Is it mature for his mother to drive to Norfolk to threaten her daughter over household items?" Nathan defended his mom, claiming she was just trying to protect family assets. Helen pulled out her list again and started reading items. "You can have all of it." I yelled, my voice cracking. "Every single thing. You can have it. I don't want anything that reminds me of her family, or the 4 years I spent being treated like trash." Nathan flinched. He protested that nobody treated me like trash. My mom made a noise that was almost a laugh. "Oh really, Nathan? Your mother threw wine in her face and made her sit on a plastic patio chair at Christmas dinner." Nathan muttered I was making it sound worse than it was. My mom asked how much worse could it be than being called street garbage and having his ex-girlfriend positioned as my replacement at every family event. Helen announced, "Enough of this." That I'd poisoned everyone against her by playing the victim. She told Nathan he could see now why this marriage was never going to work, that I came from a family that thrived on drama instead of resolving issues properly. My mom stepped forward again and pointed out the only person who thrived on drama was Helen, showing up uninvited to other people's homes with lists and threats. Helen retorted that at least she knew how to conduct herself with dignity instead of screaming on front porches like trashy people. That's when Savannah's car pulled up. She immediately asked what Helen was doing there. Helen explained she was trying to have an adult conversation, but clearly that was impossible with this family. Savannah reminded her she'd told her to leave me alone, that she'd done enough damage. Helen turned on Savannah, disappointed she was taking sides against her own family. Savannah clarified, "I'm not taking sides. I'm standing up for what is right." Nathan begged everyone to calm down. He looked at me desperate. He suggested we needed to figure out a way forward that didn't involve his entire family falling apart. I responded, "Your family is falling apart because your mother can't accept that you married someone she didn't approve of." Helen insisted she tried to accept it for 4 years. Tried to help me fit into their world. But I'd fought her at every turn. My mom, with devastating precision, asked, "Helped her fit in by humiliating her at every opportunity? By inviting Nathan's ex-girlfriend to family events? By telling people she trapped him with a fake pregnancy?" Nathan's head snapped toward his mother, his eyes wide. "Did you really tell people that?" Helen maintained she'd expressed concerns to close friends about the circumstances of our marriage. Savannah interjected, "She told half the garden club you poked holes in condoms, Nathan." Nathan looked sick, asking why she would say something like that. Helen declared she'd been trying to protect him from making a mistake. "And clearly," she said, looking pointedly at me, "I'd been right because look where we are now." "This," I told Nathan, my voice shaking with finality, "this is exactly why I'm done. His mother has spent years trying to destroy our marriage, and you've let her." Helen, never one to miss an opportunity, interrupted, claiming, actually, he had discussed divorce as an option several times, and she'd been trying to help him see alternatives. Savannah yelled, "Mom, stop lying. You've been planning this since they got engaged." I'd had enough. "You know what, Helen?" I said, my voice suddenly calm, strong. "My house and my neighborhood and my family are worth 100 of your fake, polite society friends. You are a miserable person who controls everyone with money because that's the only way you can keep people around. And Nathan? You've been so desperate for her approval that you've sacrificed your marriage for it. Helen announced. Finally. You're making sense. Now that you're done with this ridiculous display, we can discuss the separation terms. I have papers my attorney prepared. Very generous terms, considering the short marriage and the fact that you have contributed relatively little financially. My mom, without a word, grabbed the papers out of Helen's hand and ripped them up. Just tore them in half and dropped them on the driveway. She declared her daughter had her own attorney and wouldn't be signing anything Helen's people prepared. Helen said destroying legal documents was probably criminal. My mom responded that her daughter knew her worth and wouldn't let people treat her like garbage. What did you raise, Helen? She challenged. A son who values money more than his wife? Nathan asked if that's really what I thought of his family. Helen, ever consistent, confirmed she thought our family lacked the breeding and background to understand their world, and she'd been proven right. I looked at Nathan. I'm done, I told him. Done with his mother's insults, and done with his inability to defend me. Helen declared. Finally, she's making sense. My mom ordered Helen off the property again and warned that if she came back, she was filing a restraining order. Helen looked at Nathan, expecting him to do something. He just stood there. She asked if he was going to let his wife and her family treat her this way. Nathan said quietly, Maybe you should go, Mom. Helen's face went white. After everything she'd done for him, all the support and money, he was choosing them over her? Nathan murmured, I'm not choosing anyone. I'm asking you to leave because this is out of control. Helen warned him if she left like this, things would change. The trust fund, the family support, all of it. Nathan acknowledged he knew what she meant. She asked if he was really willing to give all that up. He didn't answer. Helen got in her car and left. It's been 3 days. Nathan's been texting that Helen cut him off completely. He's panicking about money. Helen sent a message saying I turned her children against her and destroyed her family. I filed for divorce yesterday. Nathan called crying, saying we needed counseling, that he'd cut off his family, that he'd do whatever it took. I told him it was too late. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone won't defend you, that tells you everything. Nathan can figure out his life without his mother's money. And I'm building my own life, where nobody gets to make me feel less than ever again. So tell me, after hearing all of this, what would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose between your spouse and their toxic family? I really want to know your thoughts.